move in a second, so I'm just going to introduce George. Okay. Welcome, everybody. Thank you for joining the Michigan Street African American Heritage Corridor's Black History Month series. My name's Audrey. I'm the curator for the corridor. Tonight, I have the honor of introducing George Scott. George is a very special player in the corridor, and I've had the pleasure of knowing him for, 5 years now? 5 years we've worked together. So George is a member of the Colored Musicians Club, and he's also the band leader for the George Scott Big Band. He is a forerunner in community outreach regarding education, awareness, and support. He advises young adults on getting into the music industry with lessons directed at teaching students how to get into the jazz industry. He has been featured on BBC World News Today for his the historical impact jazz has had on history. George is also a graduate of Canisius College with a bachelor's degree in psychology. He attended Syracuse University, where he finished with a master's degree in psychology. George puts the heart and soul into his music, supports the community, and all of the organizations he's involved with. So everybody, welcome George.
I didn't realize they did all that stuff. Well, we're here tonight to talk about the history of the club, the union that started it, and where we want to go to from here. So what I'm going to do first is show you a short video. This is how we started, and then from there, as I'm talking, I'll have pictures showing what the club used to look like and where we're at right now.
At the turn of the 20th century, Buffalo, New York was a powerhouse of industry and a crossroads to the nation. It was the capital of grain milling and flour production and forged the steel to build America's skyscrapers. In 1901, its wide tree-canopied parkways led millions of visitors to the site of the Pan American Exposition. Here, for the first time, they saw dazzling illuminated fountains, palaces, scientific pavilions, and exhibits from exotic places around the world. But among the exhibits were two, the Old Plantation and Darkest Africa, that Buffalo's black population considered insulting. Successful protest rallies were led by Mary B. Talbert, a respected African-American thinker, educator, and activist. In 1905, Mr. and Mrs. Talbert, W.B. Du Bois, and other black intellectuals worked to form the Niagara Movement. Their Declaration of Principles condemned racial segregation and discrimination and pushed for equality. Just 4 years later, those principles became the cornerstone of the nation's first civil rights organization, the NAACP. Buffalo's black musicians were among the victims of America's racial discrimination policies. In the early 20th century, any Buffalo musician who wanted one of the good-paying jobs downtown had to join the Buffalo Musicians Association, Local 43. But the racial segregation policies of both Local 43 and the American Federation of Musicians barred colored musicians from membership in the union. As many Southern and rural black Americans left home for the North and the promise of good-paying jobs, Buffalo's colored population grew. In 1917, the year the U.S. entered World War I, the colored musicians of Buffalo formed their own union, Local 533. Under the leadership of its founders, members of the new union were gradually able to work in more of the clubs, hotels, and night spots around town. Meanwhile, Jesse Clipper, one of the founders of Local 533, became the first colored soldier from Buffalo to be killed in World War I. In 1918, Local 533 organized a social club where members could gather to eat, drink, play cards, and exchange ideas during their non-working hours. And, of course, jam. 2 years later, bars, saloons, and nightclubs were shut down all over the U.S. Prohibition had begun. But for every bar that closed down, dozens of speakeasies and blind pigs opened. These illegal establishments hired entertainers and musicians by the hundreds to bring in customers. Thanks to Prohibition, there was plenty of work for musicians all over town. The jazz age was in full swing. By the 30s, the high living of the Roaring '20s was over. The country was in the grip of the Great Depression. Yet people could still forget their troubles, if just for a few hours, at clubs where they danced to the swinging tunes of local bands. Boosted by its proximity to electricity and its position as a transportation hub, Buffalo's good times slowly returned. The city became an important stop for stage stars and musicians traveling the circuit from Kansas City, Chicago, and Detroit to New York. Theaters, opera houses, and a corridor of night spots kept this neighborhood glittering with marquees. Local 533's membership included nationally renowned musicians such as violinist Stuff Smith, band leader Jimmy Lunsford, pianist Lil Hardin Armstrong, and boogie-woogie piano maestro Pete Johnson. Then as now, all visiting musicians were required to sign in with the AFM locals before performing. Top national acts came to town and kept the clubs jumping. Glamorous night spots like the Moonglow, Little Harlem, and Hotel Vendôme. Musicians shared the stage with floor shows, comedians, and chorus girls entertaining patrons throughout the night. It wasn't easy to join Local 533. There was a test of musical skill to pass first. You had to play before a select group of tough critics, serious local players with big reputations. And you had to be good. That's how Buffalo became famous for some of the nation's best musicians. After hearing this high level of musicianship, band leaders often recruited players from Local 533 for work in New York, Europe, and nationwide tours. After the local purchased this historic building in 1934, the social club was officially chartered as the Colored Musicians Club of Buffalo. It was the golden age of both the local and the club. With more work for musicians, the club became a magnet for more people, black and white. Buffalo musicians like Lou Hackney, Wade Legge, and Elvin Shepard, who had gone out on the road with top bands, came home and played at the club with famous traveling musicians like Miles Davis, Dizzy Gillespie, Della Reese, and Lena Horne. After playing to audiences at the local night spots, these celebrated musicians would drift over to the Colored Musicians Club to jam with whoever showed up that night. The atmosphere was relaxed, the music was extraordinary. It inspired new generations of young players and encompassed all forms: swing, big band, bebop, gospel, and the blues. Local 533 was well run by visionary leaders who kept the union financially sound while providing many benefits such as a credit union, life memberships, and a $1,000 life insurance policy for each member. Local 533 was a positive force in the community through its dynamic marching band, legendary Easter balls, and the active participation of many members in the Shriners. Through the strength and determination of the union leadership, Local 533 successfully fought discrimination in the musical community, in business, and in its openness to all races in both the union and in its social club. In 1969, the American Federation of Musicians insisted that all racially segregated locals must be integrated, and Local 533 joined with Local 43 to form Local 92. Although this merger proved financially detrimental to the former members of Local 533, they still owned the Colored Musicians Club building. Today, long after the creation of the integrated local, the Colored Musicians Club continues as a lasting legacy of Local 533. In 1979, the club building was granted local landmark status, complete with a historical marker that signifies the importance of the club in the musical and everyday life of the community. It attests to the countless musical careers and friendships fostered at the club, the unforgettable evenings of inspired music, and the great jazz artists who performed here. What began as a segregated union of colored professional musicians ultimately flourished into a community that welcomes all players and lovers of music, no matter what their color. We invite you to explore the museum, discover more of the rich fabric of Buffalo's musical past and present, and meet some of the musicians who defined much of the music of Buffalo and the nation.
Okay. Audrey, can you get this started? Okay, so you enjoy that video? Okay. Now, the thing that was very interesting was what really helped the jazz music to grow was by illegal activities, you know, but that's what happened. And because the music was so hip, you know, you saw them in the casinos, you saw them in the speakeasy, you saw them in, you know, where they were selling the liquor and stuff. And that was the thing. But what really helped after that more so was white musicians heard it and they wanted to play it. So they would come to our clubs and learn it so they can get a piece of the action. So it grew even more so. And then later on, you would hear it as the music in movies and commercials and stuff. So it kind of grew out of that, and which was truly amazing. But Buffalo itself was an amazing place because from the time they formed that local in 1917, the way they grew that club, and you know, they brought in some of the biggest names back in the day through Buffalo. At one point in time, Buffalo was considered like the fifth largest city in the country. And we were on one of the major music track. It was called the Chitlin Circuit. So we were just as important place to go to as New York City, as Philadelphia, Chicago, New Orleans, Kansas City. We were right smack dab in the middle of that. And we had these circulating bands. And what made the local even better was the fact that they knew how hard it was to become a local. And you just couldn't pay your $35 and got into the local. You had to go through an audition. And the audition was hell. I mean, they would call a song, you would play it, they would change the key on you. You change to that key, they'll change it again. They may pick up the tempo, they may slow it down. But the whole thing was they wanted to make sure that no matter what happened, you could handle the situation. And that's why not only were we tops in our city, but we would get calls from as far away as Europe, as well as across the country. In fact, a friend of mine that went out to the West Coast, and as soon as he said he was from Buffalo, he didn't need to audition because they knew how good he was. So that was the thing, and it made it special. So with that, any questions from anybody? You got it that good. Wait, yes, ma'am.
So they said the merger of the two was financially detrimental. Can you add any additional?
Yes. Well, I'm glad you brought that up. Initially, they were supposed to merge in '64, but both locals fought it because they felt that they were doing well. But when it happened in '69, they had no choice. It was either you merge or we discredit both of your locals. And the reason why the 533 was hurt by it, they were actually organized. They had a bank account. They had money. And whereas Local 43, they had bills of the yin yang. So all the money that they had in their bank account was taken out to pay for the debts of 43. But the thing that they had left was the club building. And the reason why they were able to hold on to that was when they purchased the building in '34, a year later, July 25th, 1935, they would put the title and the deed of the building in the club's name instead of the union's name. In fact, the day of the merger, they actually came over to the building with their files and everything ready to move into the building. So they knocked on the door and they said, "Yeah, what's up, guys?" They said, "Well, you know, we merged and we figure, you know, we move our stuff in." I said, "Well, you got to check with the guys up in the club." They go up those 20 steps, they knock on that door. Guess what? The same guys. But they, you know, and they said, "Well, you know, we had them on a lease, but their lease expired yesterday." So they held on to the building. So because of that one slick move is why we still stand here today and talk about the building and the local. Anybody else? Well,
What is it now, a building and a local, or a building?
Well, because we merged the local now is known as 92. So there is no separate white or black union now. So it's just 92. But the building itself is sort of like a remembrance of what used to be, you know, which was important. And it's just a symbol more than anything. So, yes?
Yeah, so there's no more music played there or anything?
Well, not now. Right now we're going through a combination, that's why I'm showing these pictures, of renovations and construction. We're putting an addition on the back of the building with an elevator. Because if you've been to the club before, you got to go up those 20 steps. And they are pretty steep. And after a few shots of whiskey, those steps is kind of tough to negotiate. I mean, thank God people were drunk when they fell down those steps. Otherwise, they would have broken an arm or a leg, you know. But, you know, it's tough. And again, you know, there's a lot of older members now. And we got a lot of handicapped people that enjoy the jazz, but they couldn't get up there. So now with that elevator, they were able to come up and in through the back way. In addition to that, we're building a new stage. We're getting new stage lighting, new sound system, and we'll have a monitor for overflow. So if it's a really packed night when I'm singing, you'll be able to see me in another place. Of course, I'm joking about singing. But anyway, so it's going to be nice. And then the other thing is we're going to expand our live music. So instead of being 3 days, we'll have 5 to 6 days of live music. We'll offer food now. So when you come up there, you don't have to call Pizza Hut or something to get pizza while you're waiting to listen to the music. It'll be there for you. We're going to bring back the lessons for the kids. Because like myself, I learned from that club. Mr. Tolliver here learned from that club. So we're sort of holding the torch for those guys that taught us, and we want to reach back and make sure we get these youngsters into it, as well as other programs. And we do rent out the place too, so you can check with Joanne or Laura and about that. But again, we want this to be a community club like it was before. Because again, what they used to do, which we can't do now, but they were one of the first organizations to set up a bank for black people. All right? They started with, you know, giving loans to the musicians, but later on that would be extended to the community. They were the first to set up life insurance policies. Before, if you died, it was like you passed a hat and hope it was enough to get buried. Now they had a decent burial because they had that insurance. Again, that was passed on. These guys used to do parades on Sunday. They would pick a street, people would get out of church, go to that corner, and watch these guys marching up and down the street. I mean, they did a lot. So we're trying to bring back a lot of that stuff too. So again, the main thing is we want to make it friendly and available for you guys to enjoy, and if you want to, learn.
How do you support the club?
Glad you asked. We have memberships. So you can either call 716-855-9383, or you can go to our website, thecoloredmusiciansclub.com. You go those two ways, or tap on Joanne's and Laura's right here, and they got membership forms. You can fill it out right now. So easy to do. Yes, sir.
When your renovation's going to be completed?
We're hoping right now it should be right around July, which is going to be great because we're open early July, and the end of the month we have our Queen City Jazz Festival, which will be again in front of the Buffalo and Erie County Central Library downtown. Yes.
When they hit the town casino, after they performed, did they come down to the musician club?
Yes, no matter what club it was, they came to our club. And here's another history thing, or a tidbit I like to say. The club was the first club that actually had, we would accept anybody, black or white. We had the first club that actually had racial bands. We had Canadians come down to play at that club, like people like Maynard Ferguson. So that club was very well received. And again, people came there and learned. Yes?
Did it make the Ken Burns jazz thing a few years ago?
I believe it did.
Did it?
Yeah.
Was it in there?
Yes. Not to mention, I was interviewed by the BBC and another similar BBC, but from Australia. And we had people come as far away as China, Ecuador, Germany, France, you know, Greece. I mean, we get emails all the time from different places, you know, asking about who might have played at our place, or is this club still around and whatnot. So we're still known worldwide.
What about the museum?
What about it?
About the renovation?
Yes, I'm just joking. It's being renovated as well. In fact, all the exhibits were stripped out, and we're going to get them updated, as well as 5 new exhibits. So for you, I'm going to have a hologram of me with a knife.
Of the older clubs still standing?
Well, sadly, I think there's only maybe like 2 or 3 left, because unfortunately, the bulk of those clubs were over there in the Broadway, Michigan neighborhood. And as things changed, a lot of people left that area, but nobody came back in. So it was just a lot of vacant buildings and stuff. And you've seen it, you know, stuff got torched, or, you know, they graffiti all over it. Just now, they're starting to take some of those places and fix them up, you know, into lofts, which we can't afford to live in. But, you know, but like I said, that was a thriving community at one time. So that's why a lot of them are gone. I just didn't want to depress anybody. Anybody else? Yes.
So, the story you're telling went through a period when there was no recorded music, to vinyl, to tapes, to CDs. Now we're past that.
Right.
What are you doing in terms of putting all that music so the current available systems allow for passing that on?
Well, with the new sound system and everything that we have, not only will we be able to perform, but we can do recording. Because actually, before we shut down, we were having bands come up there and record their music. So we're actually going to add something new that we didn't do before. So you'll be able to bring your band up there and record.
So how much music is there now in the site, in the Carlton Cities Club site?
In our site right now?
Yes.
Other than the jackhammer, none.
What about the video that you presented? That's a very good one.
Oh yeah, well that was what we played in the museum when we first opened. So that it's about 11 years old, that video. But you know, we're making a new one now, so when you go to the new museum, you'll see a different video than that one. But I wanted to have something to show, so you kind of have an idea as far as, you know, what was happening and how it started.
So, I'm sorry, Bruce, but that was an interesting question that he asked.
Yeah.
In regards to the archive of historical music that may have one time been on a 78 or before they went to 33, 45, whatever.
Yeah.
So it might be something worth checking into, because right now, to answer that question, it's up to the label to do that, right? Or the publisher, the people that actually own the music and the copyright, to put it into the current format, whether it's a file, MP3, or whatever it is, WAV file, whatever that is. It's really up to whoever recorded and owns that physical recording to do that.
Yeah.
If they don't do it,
Well, we have a lot of the old albums and stuff, but at the same time, I've been making contact with a lot of the record companies. Now, some of them are gone, so, you know, we'll try, but, you know, places like Blue Notes and stuff, we're going to reach out and see if we can get some of those, because we like to have a box or something where you can pull it up and hear the music, as well as, you know, tell the story about those artists and stuff. As well as we're looking to reach out and have them bring some of their new and up and coming artists to the club. So, you know, on a Wednesday night, you can see the newest version of, let's say, Charlie Parker or, you know, whoever coming to the club. So again, it'd be a whole new experience. And we're even going to have situations where we're bringing up famous artists, and if with a decent membership track, you can have a meet and greet, you know, where you can ask him questions. He can talk about how he started as a musician, you know, why he picked the piano over the bass and stuff like that. So it's a more personal one-on-one with these artists too. So we're going to have it where it's a lot more interaction, a lot more than just sitting and listening to music.
I'll stick to the same theme here. If there is music that doesn't have copyrights by a company that bought the record, you can get help from the Library of Congress, for instance, where you can put that music in there and nobody can take it away from you.
Yeah.
Otherwise, any big corporation like Disney can come buy the thing and it's gone.
Right. Well, we have a great attorney that helps us with that kind of stuff, as well as we have a gentleman who can find anything. So he does our research. So between those two guys, we'll be in good shape. I told you to move that phone. Any other questions? Because the band is inching to play. Not right now. You got to play to get paid. You know that. Yeah. Anybody else? Anybody else? No. Yeah. Anybody else? Yes, sir.
I think everybody knows. Don't you play at the historical building, Historical Society?
Yes. Since we've been down the last Sunday of the month, we go to the History Museum. And that usually starts at 6, goes till 8. And it's a $25 admission if you're a non-member. And again, if you join tonight, then it's $20 admission. And you get to see some of our top artists performing for that. But if you really want to have a nice time, get there at 2 o'clock, and they're going to have an event featuring some of 12 local community leaders that, you know, done a lot for the community. So there'll be, that's free, and that's downstairs in the lower level. And you might recognize one of the persons in there. So just saying, you might. Anybody else? Is that it? You sure? Because I don't want to call this band up and all of a sudden somebody's hand goes up. Okay.
You afterwards.
I don't like the sound of that. Well, anyway, we're going to have the Dale Tolliver Jazz Trio come up and play for you. And again, if you'd like to, thank you. And again, see Joanne here and Laura if you want to be a member. They have memberships forms for you. And enjoy the rest of the night. Okay. last name? What's Isaiah? You found him somewhere. Griffin. Okay. And these Spanish for hire. Trust me there. Thank you so much for coming out tonight. We appreciate it. Again, if you'd like to be a member, you can either call 716-855-9383, or you can visit the website at coloredmusiciansclub.com.
Yeah, are you gonna have a big grand opening event?
Oh, very big, very big. I plan on eating a lot between now and then. No, it's going to be special. We'll have music and all that stuff, so it'll be nice.
When you say there'll be food on site, do you mean there'll be a kitchen? You're building a kitchen in the front?
Yeah, we're having an expanded kitchen.
My favorite person, Linda Appleby.
Yeah. Oh, and don't forget, Sunday the 25th, we'll have a show, not this band, but another band playing at the Buffalo History Museum. 6 o'clock at the Buffalo History Museum.